Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim kripatamam vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashna Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamita Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauramane Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunavadi Paschachade Shatarane. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining. So we will resume our discussion on the sixth canto, chapter 1. So just to do a quick recap, because we are meeting after a couple of weeks, the canto, first chapter is titled The History of the Life of Ajamil. And uh, essentially there are 3 chapters that are devoted to this pastime. The chapter has 68 verses, very long chapter, and actually the longest in the sixth canto. And we had completed the first, I think, 7 verses or so. So the chapter began with Maharaj Parikshit kind of summarizing to Sukadeva Goswami all that he has heard so far. So he reflects how Sukadeva Goswami has talked about the various manvantras, the incarnations, the description of the universe, and then he comes down to the end of the 5th canto, where Sukadeva Goswami talks about the various hellish planets and the sufferings over there. So he ends his summation by putting this question before Sukadeva Goswami about how people can avoid going to the hellish planets. And Sukadeva Goswami, he responds by giving the standard methodology, which is atonement. He says that while one is healthy in body and mind, when one should perform atonement so that the sinful reaction of their activities do not pull them down later on. So this is where we are kind of left at the 8th verse. So we will resume our discussion from 6:1-9. Sri Raj Uvacha Drishtashruta bhayam yat papam jnananapyatmano hitam karoti bhuya vivassaha prayashitam atho katham. Maharaj Parikshit said, one may know that sinful activity is injurious for him because he actually sees that a criminal is punished by the government and rebuked by the people in general. And because he hears from scriptures and learned scholars that one is thrown into hellish conditions in the next life for committing sinful acts. Nevertheless, in spite of such knowledge, one is forced to commit sins again and again, even after performing acts of atonement. Therefore, what is the value of such atonement? So, Maharaj Parikshit, in a mood that is a little, it's a little different from what he has been displaying so far, which is one of respectful hearing. He is now actually criticizing the solution given by Sukadeva Goswami. And later on, we'll see that Sukadeva Goswami wants that because he's testing Maharaj Parikshit. But at this point, he puts it as, and it is a valid solution. atonement, Prayashchit is a valid solution. So, Maharaj Parishad gives in two verses uh, a concise explanation of why this is not a lasting solution. So, he says that so he talks about the three ways by which one gets knowledge. So, one may see it by their eyes, one may hear from it by authorities, or one may know it by reading from the scriptures or from other trusted sources. So, Pashya Maharaj says that through these three ways, one may know about the consequences of sins. But despite that, the person will repeatedly commit the sins because of his conditioning. So, the solution that Sukadeva Goswami is offering for atonement will protect from the reactions of past sinful activities. So that Parishar Maharaj is, of course, accepting because his Guru Maharaj is saying that. But the point is saying is that as long as the propensity to commit sins remain, then despite all the paraphernalia to the contrary, one may see, hear, or know, but despite that, because they have the propensity to commit sin, they will not stop. And this is something that we can all relate to at a very personal basis. That as practicing devotees, we are fortunate that we are exposed to a good understanding of the right and the wrong. But there are many times that even when we know the difference between the right and the wrong, we are unable to choose the right. And we may give different reasons that still not a pure devotee, or we may still not, or the time, place, circumstance, or mitigating circumstances. But the root cause is that the propensity has not been cured. So, how much more, and this is for devotees, so how much more so for those who are simply trying to lead a pious life? So, Srila Prabhupada in the purport gives the example of confessions in Christianity. And Prabhupada was always very critical of this because, so confessions is every week or with some amount of regularity, people go to the confession booth, there's a priest, and they confess their crimes to the priest or the sins to the priest. The priest will give them some kind of, I think it's called penitence, which may be a combination of different things. They chant so many Hail Marys and give so much in charity or do something. And then the priest basically will chant some hymns and says that, uh, once you do that, then by the power of such and such, you will be cleansed of the sin. So Prabhupada says this essentially makes people professional sinners, which means that they will sin, they will atone, they will sin, they will atone, and ultimately they will sin more and more. So, Parishit Maharaj, because of his deep compassion and concern for others, now Maharaj Parishit is a pure devotee, but he knows that there are others who fall in this category of being a slave to their propensity. So, out of compassion for them, he is um, probing his spiritual master to give more. Next verse 10. क्वचिन्निवर्तते भद्रात् क्वचिच्चरति तत्पुनः प्रायश्चित्तम् अथो पार्थं मन्ये कुञ्जरशौचवत्. Sometimes one who is very alert so as not to commit sinful acts is victimized by sinful life again. I therefore consider this process of repeated sinning and atoning to be useless. It is like bathing of an elephant. For an elephant cleanses itself by taking a full bath and then throws dust over its head and body as soon as it returns to the land. So Maharaj Parikshit is using a very apt analogy of the bathing of an elephant. That an elephant will go and bathe and make itself very clean, but then when it comes out, because it is addicted to the throwing of mud on its body, it immediately does that, and then it'll go and take a bath again and do the same thing again. So in the same way, Maharaj Parikshit says that even one who is very alert, so now he's not talking about people who are overtly sinful. So they can't be saved. They will go to the hellish conditions. Now later on we will see that even they can be saved. But at this point he's saying, okay, there are people who are addicted to sins. Let's not talk about them. But then there are those who are trying to commit, not trying to not commit sins. How? By acknowledging that they may have committed sin in the past, they're atoning for it, they're trying to lead a pious life, but they get victimized by their propensity. So Prabhupada says that Parikshit Maharaj inquired how a human being could free himself from sinful activities. Right? And then Prabhupada said that Sukadeva Goswami is testing Maharaj, testing the intelligence of Maharaj Parikshit. So in the Bhagavatam, we see that Maharaj Parikshit is tested 3 times by Sukadeva Goswami. And this is the acceptable interaction between a guru and a disciple. That before a guru reveals more to the disciple, the guru will test and see if the disciple is ready to receive it. Because scriptural knowledge is like a very potent weapon. If it is used in a correct way, it can be used to cut the bonds of the material nature. But if it is used in a wrong way, it can cut the person who is using it. So what are the 3 times that Maharaj Parikshit was tested? So, so the first time he was tested for understanding. That have you understood the nature of the relationship between the Lord and the devotee? So this is the test that he's facing at this point. So that Sukadeva Goswami is giving him a seemingly easy path of atonement, but he actually wants to test Parikshit Maharaj that have you understood about the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Have you understood the potency of Bhakti? And based on that, Sukadeva Goswami will introduce him to the potency of the holy name. So he has not explicitly spoken about the potency of the holy name, so he's not testing him about that. But he's testing him about the understanding of Bhakti. That Bhakti, right from the first canto, Sukadeva Goswami has been speaking about the potency of your devotional service, how it transcends all karma kand activities, jnanasthan. Right from the first canto, he's been speaking. So he's testing Maharaj Parikshit to see that if he is still anchored in the karma kand part of the Vedas, or he has understood the higher path of bhakti. This second time Maharaj Parikshit will be tested will be at the end of the 9th canto. So there we see that after Sukadeva Goswami speaks about Lord Ram. So there, if you for those who have read it, you'll see that Sukadeva Goswami summarizes the whole of Ramayana in a few verses. And the whole battle, which is several sargas in Ramayana, just a couple of verses. There's only a few places where he lingers, Sukadeva Goswami, which is when Lord Ram is interacting with his devotees, Lord Ram and Sita. That's only, and that also he lingers briefly. He may speak maybe a dozen verses, and after finishing Ramayana, he speaks about Krishna Lila. And Krishna Lila also, in the same mood, he summarizes it very quickly and begins to move on. And then Parishit Maharaj immediately protests. He says that please don't move on so quickly. I want to hear more. So here Parishit Maharaj is tested for eagerness. And when Parishit Maharaj displays this eagerness, then Sukadeva Goswami, he speaks all of 90 chapters in the 10th canto about the pastimes of Krishna. Third time that he will be tested is towards the end of the 12th canto, where Sukadeva Goswami, so this is when Parishit Maharaj's Bhagavatam is finished, almost finished. Parishit Maharaj is about to leave his body, inevitably, shortly. And Sukadeva Goswami slips in impersonal meditation at that time, saying, now your end is coming, now just meditate on the impersonal form. And Parishit Maharaj says, why? When I can think about the sweetness of Krishna. So here Parishit Maharaj is tested for steadiness. So he is tested for understanding in the 6th canto, 2nd chapter, or rather 1st chapter. He is tested for eagerness at the end of the 9th canto, and he is tested for steadiness at the end of the 12th canto. This is 12th canto, chapter 5. All three cases, Maharaj Parikshit passes with flying colors. Now, there is one time when Sukadeva Goswami tests Parikshit Maharaj and he does not pass the test. Does anybody know when that happens? So this happens in the towards the middle of the 10th canto, in the 33rd chapter. So this is when Sukadeva Goswami, he is fully immersed in describing the rasa dance pastime of Krishna and the gopis, and he's going more and more into the esoteric details of the rasa dance. And then Parishit Maharaj, he interrupts Sukadeva Goswami, and this is verse 26-27, when he says that uh, Krishna is the personification of dharma, and then he has descended to destroy irreligion and re-establish religious principle. Right? So he's almost paraphrasing the verse that Krishna spoke to his grandfather Arjun, that yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhaktir bhavata abhyuktana dharmasya tadatmanam shrijami. Right? So he talks about the first two things, that he says Krishna has come to destroy irreligion and re-establish religion. Right? And then he says, how is it that the original speaker, follower, and guardian of moral laws violated the wives of other men by touching them. So he himself, Parikshit Maharaj, is a little bewildered. Right now, in remembering that the instructions of Krishna to Arjun, he remembers two but forgets one. He forgets paritranaya sadhuna. He forgets the one that he comes for the pleasure of his devotees. And what does Sukdev Goswami respond? He chastises Maharaj Parikshit. So in verse 29, he says that these are those who are powerful controllers. They are not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them. For they are just like fire, which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. And then he gives the example of Lord Shiva. He says that one who is not a great controller should never imitate the behavior of great personalities. Just like a person who's not Rudra would destroy himself if he tried to drink an ocean of poison. And after that, he stops speaking about the Rasalila pastime. He does not go any further in it. Now, you notice that here also, Maharaj Sukdev Goswami, he does not explain to Maharaj Parikshit the more esoteric details of why Krishna consorting with the gopis is not an act of immorality. He could have said that the gopis the gopis were always the internal energy of Krishna. Is Krishna consorting with his internal energy? Or he could say this is all Yog Maya. This is all an act that was done for the pleasure of his devotees. Or he could say that Krishna is so great that he will happily transgress the laws of dharma. He will happily take on this label of being considered immoral just for the pleasure of his devotees. Because the gopis wanted to enjoy Madhurya Ras in Parakriya Bhav, Krishna said, okay, and I will accept that. He doesn't say any of that. He just says that you apparently have not understood the position of Krishna. But do not try to imitate it. Because when people do not understand, they do one of two things. They will either criticize or imitate. Right? So Parikshit Maharaj is criticizing, and Sukdev Goswami is cautioning him that now don't go to the next stage. Now Parikshit Maharaj is close to his end of the life, but this caution is for people reading the Bhagavatam later on, that if you do not understand, definitely do not try to imitate it. And then he leaves it at that. So this is one place where Parikshit Maharaj apparently fails the test, but the other three places, one of them is over here where he actually passes with flying colors. Okay, let's go to verse 11. Shribhadraya karmana karma nirharo nahe yatyantikaishyate avidvad adhikaritvad prayashitam vimarshanam. Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vedvyas, answered, my dear king, since acts meant to neutralize impious activities are also fruitive, they will not release one from the tendency to act fruitively. Persons who subject themselves to the rules and regulations of atonement are not at all intelligent. Indeed, they are in the mode of darkness. Unless one is freed from the mode of ignorance, trying to counteract one action through another is useless, because this will not uproot one's desires. Thus, even though one may superficially seem pious, he will undoubtedly be prone to act impiously. Therefore, real atonement is enlightenment in perfect knowledge. Vedanta, by which one understands the supreme absolute truth. So we see the pleasure in the voice of the Guru, that he's happily accepting the criticism of Parikshit Maharaj and actually takes it one step further. So Parikshit Maharaj said that those who are inclined to material activities, they will not get much benefit from atonement. And Sukdev Goswami is saying, and not only will they not get much benefit from atonement, he is saying that he's criticizing them. So he's saying that they're not at all intelligent. Why? Because it's lot of effort for very little gains. Then he says that they're in the mode of darkness. Now, here the darkness doesn't mean that they're in the mode of ignorance, but darkness here means is that they lack real knowledge, right? So we also see that in these translations, Srila Prabhupada has also mixed purport with translations. So you see the translations are fairly large because Srila Prabhupada, he has commingled word by word translation with contextual explanation also. So Prabhupada says, unless one is freed from the mode of ignorance. So again, the mode of ignorance here is not the material mode of ignorance, but ignorance of one's own position. Because generally people who are performing atonement are in the mode of goodness, material mode of goodness. So they are surrendered to the Vedas, they desire to have knowledge and uh, life that is more free of the passion and ignorance, but they're still in the larger scale they're considered mode of ignorance because they do not understand the futility of this process, because one may be cutting a tree but leaving the roots. So you may cut the tree any number of times, the tree will keep appearing again and again. I remember when we moved into our house, there was a huge in our backyard. There was a huge tree that had been probably planted when the house was built or at some point of time, and it was really close to the wall of the house. So when we were moving into it, then the person who was inspecting it said that it'd be good for you to get this tree removed because the roots will crack the foundation. The tree is like um, has grown deep roots and they spread out, so they crack the foundation of the house and then moisture comes in, etc. So we said okay. So first year, I actually cut the tree myself. It took a while, but I cut the tree and we threw away the tree. And next spring, tree grew up again. And we kept doing this like at least for 3 or 4 years. We would cut the tree, and every time I would cut it a little sooner before it would grow. And finally, we had to call a landscaper, and essentially then they dug up the roots, which was essentially, the roots were almost like 5 to 6 feet deep. And then not only that, they put some chemicals there because they said that even though we have taken out the main tap root, but these roots branch out and any of the roots can actually once again come up. So they put a whole bunch of chemicals. They put it back, and after 3 years, the tree grew up again. So the roots are so tenacious that despite everything that you do, if there is proper water and temperature and heat, they will catch up again. So similarly, the desires are so tenacious that despite all the knowledge, the understanding, the seeing, the hearing, even the experiencing, when the environment becomes conducive, the desires, they blossom again. So we see in this conversation the mood of Maharaj Parikshit also. So it is said that there are 4 kinds of disciples. So there are disciples that will overtly not follow the instructions of the guru. Right? So the guru says do this, and it's guru avagya, and they say not really. And guru says do this, they say not really. So they are considered to be prakrit shishya, so they're disciples in name only. Like once there was a reporter actually Prabhupada that so many of your disciples are not practicing anymore. And Prabhupada said they were never my disciples. They said, no, but you gave them initiation and you gave them spiritual names and you gave them Kantimala. And Prabhupada said, yes, but that does not make them my disciple. When they start following my instructions, then they are my disciple. Otherwise, they're disciples in name only. So that's the first category. The second category is that they will take the instruction of the guru and follow it to the extent that the instruction has been given. If the guru says get up in the morning and chant, they will get up in the morning and chant. The guru says read 30 pages of Bhagavatam every day, they will read 30 pages of Bhagavatam every day. Right? So that's the second category. The third category is that they will go beyond the instructions of the guru, understanding the mood of the guru. Right? So like in Ramayana, we see Lord Ram, he asked Hanuman simply to go there and see if Sita Devi is there in Lanka. And then if she is there, then deliver a message, the ring, to show that Lord Ram is coming. Now, Hanuman not only does that, he also burns down Lanka. And similarly, when he was asked to get the Sanjeevani booty, he gets the whole mountain there. And so this is the mood of an enthusiastic devotee who will understand the instructions of the guru and exceed them. Then the fourth category, which is the highest category, is one who will act without even being given instructions because he completely understands the mood of the guru. So Maharaj Parikshit is in the fourth category. That when Sukdev Goswami is talking about atonement, Maharaj Parikshit immediately understood the mood of Sukdev Goswami. And that's why he objected to him, not to show that I know more than you do, not to say that, okay, I've been hearing the Bhagavatam, so look how expert I have become in the Bhagavatam. But he understood that his guru wants to further the glorification of Bhakti and Krishna. And that's why he acts in this way. And we can see that by the reciprocation of Sukdev Goswami. Because Maharaj Parikshit, Sukdev Goswami said, do this, Maharaj Parikshit said, this is useless. And Sukdev Goswami says, you are absolutely right. Not only this is useless, this is completely useless. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the Guru Sukdev Goswami has examined Parikshit Maharaj. And it appears that the king has passed one phase of the examination by rejecting the process of atonement because it involves fruitive activity. Now Sukdev Goswami is suggesting the platform of speculative knowledge. Progressing from Karm Kand to Gyan Kand, he is proposing Prayashitam Vimarshanam. Real attainment is cultivation of speculative knowledge. So when Parikshit Maharaj rejected atonement, what does Sukdev Goswami say? He says that real atonement is enlightenment in perfect knowledge, Vedanta, by which one understands the supreme absolute truth. So he is now saying that the knowledge of the Supreme Lord is sufficient to take care of the problem that Parikshit Maharaj is presenting, which is the innate propensity to commit sins. So Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that everything that Sukadeva Goswami is saying is factual. So Prabhupada quotes two verses from the Bhagavad Gita, 15:15, where Krishna says, Vedesacha sarveraham eva vedya. The purpose of the Vedas is to understand the personality of Godhead. And 7:19, where Krishna is glorifying Bhunam Jananamante Jnanamanam Prapatyate, where where Krishna is glorifying. And 7:16 also, where Krishna says, Chaturvidha bhajante mam ye jana paripasate. Jnani is glorified. So Sukadeva Goswami now is testing Parikshit Maharaj in the second phase. He's saying, okay, Karma Kand is not useful. How about Gyan Kand? How about cultivation of knowledge? So let's see what Parikshit Maharaj says in the next verse. This is verse 12. Nashnata patayannevanam vyadayo bhivavantihi evam niyamakradrajan shaneh kshemaya kalpate. My dear king, if a diseased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, he is gradually cured, and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regulative principles of knowledge, he gradually progresses towards liberation from material contamination. So I'm sorry, this is still Sukadeva Goswami glorifying Gyan to Parikshit Maharaj. So Prabhupada says that Gyanis are better than Karmis because they do not perform sinful activities. Prabhupada says that on the platform of Gyan, and Prabhupada always uses Gyan as speculative knowledge. Now, speculative knowledge is not, speculative knowledge is not speculative knowledge of the Maya Partha Gyanas. Right? So there's those who just speculate, the scientists and the Mayavadis, right? So it's not that speculative knowledge. Speculative knowledge is attempting to understand Krishna through the Vedic scriptures. And Prabhupada calls it speculative knowledge because it is impossible to understand Krishna simply from the perspective of Gyan. But nevertheless, it is better than the platform of karma or fruitive activities. And because there is always the chance of falling from the platform of so Prabhupada says that from the platform of karma, there is always a chance to fall to hellish conditions. But on the platform of Gyan, one is safe from hellish life, although one is not completely free from infection. So when one is at the stage of Atmagyan, that I am not the body, but I am the soul, then one is assured of liberation, moksha. But that liberation is in the impersonal Brahman. And that point is often made by Prabhupada, that in the impersonal Brahman, the soul desire to have ananda, enjoyment, is not fulfilled. And they may eventually fall down. So even at the platform of Gyan, there is a possibility of fall down, even though it is much lesser than at the platform of karma. But nevertheless, it is there. Then in the analogy that Sukadeva Goswami gives, he says that a person is gradually cured. Right? So he says, Shanaha Kshemaya Kalpate. that gradually the person becomes fit. So Shanaya means that this process is very long. And while at the successful completion of the process, there is protection, during the execution of the process, there is always the possibility of uh, fall down. Now, in contrast, the the process of bhakti, the word that is typically used is sadhya, or rapid purification. So, bhakti that way provides protection not only during the process but also during the end stage. So, in the next two verses, Sukdev Goswami will talk about the rules and the regulation of this gradual purification that is offered by Gyan. And Prabhupada summarizes saying that the difficulty on the platform of Gyan is that one thinks that he has become liberated and has become Narayan or Bhagavan. Right? So this is the complete other extreme of speculative knowledge. Right? There's one extreme is Atma Gyan, where a person is properly situated in their spiritual identity, at least as a soul. Maybe not as a devotee, but at least as a soul. And the other extreme is the person is so messed up that they think that they are God. And in that stage, there is no purification, either Shane or otherwise, because right from the beginning, the consciousness is contaminated. Okay. So now verses 13 and 14, they talk about the purification offered by Jnana. Tapasa brahmacharena samena cha damena cha tagena satya sauchabhyam yamena niyamena va dehavag buddhijam dhira dharmagya shradhayanvita kshipante agam mahadapi venugulmamivanalaha. To concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo the austerity of voluntarily giving up sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, and non-violent. Follow the regulative principles and regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus, a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins performed with his body, words, and mind. These sins are like dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity. So, who is the person that is being described in this verse? Sukdev Goswami says, Dharmagya Shradhaya Anvita. So, Dharmagya Shradhaya Anvita is a person with faith, Shraddha. And Dharmagya means that the person knows Dharma. Right? So, these are the people who follow the various aspects of Gyan Kand sincerely. So if you notice, the characteristics given here are very similar to the characteristics given in Bhagavad Gita in uh, chapter 13 verses 8 to 12, chapter 14 verses 22 to 25, chapter 16 verses 1 to 3, chapter 10 verses 4 and 5. So these are the characteristics of one in knowledge. So in this verse, 9 characteristics are given. So tapasa is the general principle of following specific types of austerities. Then brahmacharyena is celibacy. Samena is controlling the mind. Damena is controlling the senses. Tyagena is giving voluntarily in charity. Tyagena also means that tyag is giving up attachment to the fruits of your activity. being unattached. Then Satya. Satya is truthfulness. Satya also means abiding by the scriptures. They're not just speaking the truth, but Satya also means abiding by the scriptures. Then Swachabhyam is internally and externally clean. So external cleanliness is by taking bath and living in a clean environment. Internal cleanliness is by following the regulative principles. Then Yamena Niyamena. Like Yamena is that avoiding the prohibitions, not to steal, not to commit violence. And Niyamena is following injunctions that like chanting of the holy name. And what is the result of one who follows these 9 things? He say, Sukadeva Goswami says that Dehavak Buddhijam Kshipante Agam Mahadapi. That these, by following these things, one will destroy even great sins performed by the body, mind, and words. So, by following these things, one becomes situated on the platform of Gyan. When one is situated on the platform of Gyan, that I am not the body but the spirit soul, then one automatically destroys the sins that have been performed by the gross and subtle body. So that's why sins by the body, mind, and words. So Sukadeva Goswami uses an analogy to both to glorify this and also to point out the limitation. So he says that Venu Gulmam Ivanala. So just like the fire destroys the clump of bamboos. Right? And Prabhupada, if you look at the translation, Prabhupada contextually adds, although the roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity. Right? So this is Prabhupada planting the seed of what Sukadeva Goswami will actually speak later on. At this point, Sukadeva Goswami is not really saying that although the roots remain to grow again, but Prabhupada adds this for our benefit, so that while we are reading it, we are also understanding the limitation of it. And Prabhupada in the purport also mercifully, he brings our attention again to the fact that all these kinds of austerities can be easily performed through the process of bhakti. So he says the tongue can be controlled by the chanting of Krishna's names and by eating only Krishna Prasad. And if the tongue is controlled, then brahmacharya and other purifying process will be automatically followed. Right? Like in the Nectar of Instruction, very first verse, it is said that by the control of the tongue, bali, by the control of the tongue and the bali, the genitals are controlled. So celibacy is followed, and one becomes a dhira. Dhira means one becomes unperturbed by dualities. And Prabhupada makes this a practical point that Krishna himself does not recommend performing too many austerities. So the reference is Bhagavad Gita 6:17, where Krishna says that one who is temperate in the habit of eating, sleeping, and working and recreation can mitigate all material gains. So the process of Gyan that Sukadeva Goswami has spoken has 2 problems. One, it's difficult to practice because the control of the senses is artificial. It has to come from the person who's already suffering from uncontrolled senses. So it's difficult. And the second is that it will come back again. So when Sukadeva Goswami uses an analogy of that the fire destroys the bamboos, or Vishwanath Chakravarti says that Sukadeva Goswami could also mean that they are destroying the leaves of the creepers under the bamboo tree, but not really touching the bamboo tree. Right? So the understanding is, even though he does not say it explicitly, just as Prabhupada interpolates that phrase, saying that because the roots remain, they will grow back at the first opportunity. So Sukadeva Goswami has presented atonement, and Parikshit Maharaj has rejected it. Then, so he atonement Karm Kand, then he presents Gyan Kand, which is superior to Karm Kand because it will create a much stronger platform. And the difficulty of that is that even practicing it is not very simple. And there is always the possibility of fall down from there. So looking at the Vishnu Chakravarti says that Sukadeva Goswami, looking at the face of Maharaj Parikshit, understands that his disciple is unhappy. He can understand that these responses have not satisfied his glorious disciple. So he does not even wait for Maharaj Parikshit to reject this, but immediately it keeps on speaking, taking him to the next process of atonement or next process of remediating past sinful activities, which is the process of bhakti. Okay, so we'll go to the verse 15. केचित् केवलया भक्त्या वासुदेव परायणा अघं धुन्वन्ति कार्तृष्णस् अघं धुन्वन्ति कार्ष्णेन निहारम् इव भास्करः. Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So this is a very important verse for devotees. Now, in contrast, we can see now what were the problems in the other two processes. That here he is saying that, Sukadeva Goswami is saying is that devotional service can uproot the weeds of sinful actions. The other processes were not uprooting them. They were simply cutting them down. The roots still remained. So, and then Sukadeva Goswami continues that there is no possibility that they will revive. In the other two processes, there was a possibility that they will revive. In Karm Kand, there is a certainty that they will revive. In Gyan Kand, there is a possibility that they will revive. And then Sukadeva Goswami uses an analogy to demonstrate the potency of bhakti. That just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So Sukadeva Goswami prefaces the verse by saying Kechit. So Kechit means some people. So he uses that in a way to justify why he gave the other two processes. Because Maharaj Parikshit might say, no, the whole undercurrent of testing aside, he might say, why didn't you just give me this process anyway? Or why didn't you give your audiences this process right away? And Sukadeva Goswami says, Kechit, that there are very few people who understand and practice Kevalya Bhakti. So he says, Kechal Kevalya Bhakti Vasudeva Parayana. That there are very few people who will follow this process of exclusive devotional service, Vasudeva Parayana. A similar mood toward Krishna. In chapter 7, he says, Manushanam Sahasreshu, thousands of persons one may take to it. Or Bahunam Janmanamante, after many, many births, one will take to it. So, Sukdev Goswami, in his defense, is saying that the reason I still gave the other two process is that there are not many people who will take to the process of bhakti. But he is also making this point that bhakti is not only divide of karma and gyan, it is also independent of them. Right? So he is also placing bhakti on its own different platform. And what is the result? He says, Kartasnena. Kartasnena means completely. It completely uproots the sin, just like the sun completely destroys the fog. So we see that in responding to the question by Maharaj Parikshit, Sukdev Goswami has given us three analogies to understand their efficacy. So for Karam Kand, Prashit, he gave the analogy of elephant bathing. And elephant bathing is the fallen is assured and imminent. Elephant takes a bath, as soon as it comes out of the river, it will again spray mud on it. Right? So that is Karam Kand. Then he gave the analogy of the burning of the bamboo trees. Gyan Kand. So there the bamboos will come back, but after a while. The roots will take a while to gather the nutrients and begin to grow them again. And then finally, he gives an example of the sun burning away the fog. Now, by empirical understanding, we know that once the sun burns away the fog does not appear again. So, sometime in the morning when it is very foggy and the sun comes up, the fog is gone. It's not that after an hour or so the fog will appear again. As long as the sun is there, the fog is gone. So that is bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada, he writes a very, very elaborate purport to glorify the appearance of bhakti in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, this is not the first time bhakti has appeared, of course, but the sixth canto is glorified because of the appearance of pure devotional service, specifically pure devotional service in the age of Kali through the chanting of the holy name. I'll just touch on the major point. Prabhupada writes a very long purport on it. So I'll touch on the major points that Prabhupada makes. He talks about the problems with Gyan. Like Brahma in his praise to Lord Krishna in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, he says that if someone gives up that path is the path of bhakti, and engages in the cultivation of speculative knowledge, he will simply undergo a troublesome path and will not achieve a desired result. As a person who beats an empty husk of wheat cannot get grain, one who simply speculates cannot achieve self-realization. His only gain is trouble. Then in the 11th canto, the Navagendras speak to King Nimi, and they say that devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from all the other things, these three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Lord, in the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger comes simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So this verse talks about how bhakti is immediately active. One does not have to wait for the perfection of bhakti before they get the results, unlike karma and jnana. So when you eat right from the very first morsel, these three things happen. That one gets relief from hunger, one gets nourishment and pleasure. And as one eats more and more of that happens. Same thing with bhakti. In the 11th canto, second chapter, verse 42, it is said that bhakti pareshanabu viraktir anyatra cha. If one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, material activities, both sinful and pious, automatically become distasteful to them. Prabhupada in the purport, he also does an analysis of the causes of suffering. He says that the non-devotees must undergo material hardships because they are prone to commit sinful fruitive activities. The desire to commit sinful actions continue in their hearts due to ignorance. Papa or pataka sin in general arising out of transgression of the rules of conduct given in the scriptures are classified into several categories as follows. He gives three categories. So there is what is known as the upapatak or patak, which are ordinary sins. There is the mahapatak, which are mortal sins, and there is atipatak, which is grave sin. This is based on the severity. And then sins are also classified into four stages based on maturity. Kuta, Beej, Prarabdha, then Aprarabdha. So this we all did when we did Bhakti Shastri and Nectar of Devotion. So Prabhupada is speaking about sins not because he wants us to specialize in sins, but the point that he makes is that whether a sin is a patak, a mahapatak, or atipatak, whether the sin is a kuta, beej, prarabdha, or aprarabdha, bhakti will vanquish all of them. Right? And there are references that are given in the 11th canto. Krishna says to Uddhav, "My dear Uddhava, devotional service and relationship with me is like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all the fuel of sinful activity supplied for it." Or in the third canto, chapter 33, Devahuti says to Lord Kapila, "My dear Lord, if even a person born in a family of dog eaters hears and repeats the chanting of your glories, offers respects to you, and remembers you, he is immediately greater than a Brahman and is therefore eligible to perform sacrifice. Therefore, what is to be said of one who has seen you directly?" So, Prabhupada in the purport also quotes Jiva Goswami. He says that even in the stage of Abhas Rupa Bhakti, all the reactions of sinful life are uprooted and vanquished. Srila Jiva Goswami expresses the opinion that the word kartasneyana means that even if one has a desire to commit sinful activities, the roots of that desire are vanquished merely by Abhas Rupa Bhakti. The example of Bhaskar, the sun, is most appropriate. The Abhas feature of Bhakti is compared to dawn, and the accumulation of one's sinful activity is compared to fog. Since the fog does not spread throughout the sky, the sun need not do more than merely manifest its first rays, and the fog immediately disappears. Similarly, if one has a slight relationship with devotional service, all the fog of a sinful life is immediately vanquished. Okay. So extensive purports, like I said, because this is a verse that is um, uh, the first the first direct glorifications of Shuddha Bhakti and comparison with other forms. So let me pause over here and see if there is any discussion. Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
No, I was just saying, comment saying, it's a beautiful piece of analogies and about the tree, and you had direct experience yourself from cutting the tree and putting whatever there is, it came back. And then also the glories of devotional service. This can be a very nice class and to give and to elaborate. And we're using this free analogy and how bhakti is always glorious and prevailing.
Yes, you're right, Prabhu. I think that's the reason why Srila Prabhupada writes so extensively about it, because it reflects on the a very practical mode of devotees. That now, in the current day and age, we are not even qualified to perform karma and gyan. So even those avenues, it's not that those avenues are even available to us. But following the path of bhakti gives us the conviction also that we are actually fortunate to follow one that is. It's like somebody saying that you can't pass graduate school, you can't pass postgraduate school. What hope is it for you to get a PhD? But here, essentially, that's what's being said. Don't worry about graduate or postgraduate. By the mercy of Krishna and devotees, you will get a PhD.
Yeah, how do you call this honorary degree?
I got it what?
Honorary.
Honorary degree. Yeah. Good point.
Thank you, brother.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So,
Great.
we also read through about reactions to sinful activities, where there will be like a hellish planets, and I think in prior chapters. So this kind of the atonement where we are uh, going towards basically which necessitates our thoughtfulness towards the devotional service. How to even reconcile with that? Like, you do this sin, you are bound to get that reaction at some point. And there's no kind of a what do you call scope of escaping that, right? You are bound to have that reaction. And how to reconcile? Yes, we do see the importance of this atonement, or um, which is leading towards gaining knowledge, right? That and the devotional service. How to reconcile that? Like, they are bound. If a person does a sin, he has to go through the reactions. That's what we studied in prior chapters.
So the reaction to sinful activities is inevitable in all processes other than bhakti. Right, so the law of karma, so essentially what you're describing is the invincibility of the law of karma, right? That
Yeah.
you do in sinful activities, you have to suffer the consequences, whether it's in hellish planets or whether it is just in terms of material suffering. That's the law of karma. Right? The law of karma is invincible, except for those who practice bhakti. For those who practice bhakti, Srila Prabhupada would say that the law of karma is replaced by the law of Krishna karma. And so the reactions to one's activities are given by Krishna as opposed to the law of karma. Now, the reactions may be more or less, or they could be. So, sometimes when devotees perform sinful activities, then the reaction may be a lot more severe than what would be awarded by the law of karma. Like we see the case of Chota Haridas, and his transgression was very, very minor. He was a sannyasi, he approached a woman who was old enough to be his mother, who was a pure devotee herself. He begged from her some rice for Mahaprabhu. He wanted to cook some special rice dish for Mahaprabhu. And his mood was simply to serve Mahaprabhu. So, where's the transgression there? Very small transgression. And Mahaprabhu, he banned him from his association to the point that he committed suicide. And then Mahaprabhu, when he was told, he said, good, he deserved to commit suicide. Like it seems like it's very hard-hearted. And then you see Jagai Madai, who had performed so many sinful activities, killing brahmanas, raping, arson, etc. And Mahaprabhu just said, no worries, all is gone. Right? Yamaraj fainted, right? When he saw all the sins that were accruing to Jagai Madai, they had suddenly disappeared, he fainted in surprise. So that is Krishna karma. That Krishna can either magnify the result to teach. Now, in case of Chota Haridas was an eternal associate of Krishna. So he was, Mahaprabhu was simply using him to teach others that how dangerous association with the opposite sex is, even if it is seemingly in a safe environment, right? He wanted to give that lesson. So he may exaggerate the results of the karma or he may diminish it. That's up to Krishna. But the point is that it is no longer bound by the law of karma. And for a devotee who's practicing bhakti seriously and sincerely, then all the past sinful activities are burnt away immediately. So in the Nectar devotion, it is said that this happens during the initial stages of bhakti. Technically, it says that after anartha nivritti, karma ceases to act. So the kleshangini and subhada, kleshangini is all the kleshas are burnt away, and subhada is everything becomes auspicious. So this is effectively negating the law of karma for that practitioner. And Rupa Goswami says that it is achieved at the stage of anartha nivritti.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, then we can continue with the next verse. This is verse 16. Na tata hayagvan rajan puyet tapadibihi yatha krishnar pita pranas tatpurusha nishevaya. My dear king, if a sinful person engages in the service of a bona fide devotee of the Lord and thus learns how to dedicate his life unto the lotus feet of Krishna, he can be completely purified. One cannot be purified merely by undergoing austerity, penance, brahmacharya, and other methods of atonement I have previously described. So here, Sukdev Goswami is now openly admitting the fact that the two processes that he had given so far are ineffective. And so the whole things of penance is atonement, then austerity and brahmacharya, they are gyan. So he says that these two processes, karma and gyan, are not effective. So it's almost a direct contradiction of the verses 7 and 8. But not to say that Sukdev Goswami is saying I made a mistake. Because remember the word kechit, that for some people. So this is applicable for those people who take to bhakti. For those who cannot take to bhakti, this process of karma and gyan are the only way to avoid falling down to hellish planets. So this is another important verse, because you also notice here that Sukdev Goswami, even though he is speaking indirectly, but he is revealing more and more about bhakti. So who is he calling a calling a devotee, he is saying that those who, he says, Tat Purusha Nishevaya. So, those who serve the devotees of Krishna. Right, and then he also calls Krishna Arpita Prana. That himself, the person, is Krishna Arpita Prana. That his whole life is dedicated to Krishna, and his conduct is serving the devotees of Krishna. So that's the mood of a practicing devotee. So Bhakti Devi should not be used for such insignificant actions as pacifying sins. Right. So Sukdev Goswami presents the opinions of learned according to scriptures while criticizing other opinions. So while he is talking about the potency of bhakti in destroying sins, he is also laying the foundation that for bhakti, this is a very small and insignificant thing. Why? Because Krishna arpitaha pranaha. Because the devotees do not even have their own lives. So how can they suffer? Let's say if I have an elephant that I need to take care of, then I may take care of it properly or improperly. I may make a lot of efforts to take care of the elephant. But if I give the elephant to the king, then it's not my problem. So the lives of the devotees are given to Krishna. So everything that goes with the life, which is sinful reactions, suffering, etc., that's not the devotee's problem anymore. And so that's why he does not have to perform atonement. He does not have to perform the recommended activities according to their varna or ashram. All he has to do is to practice devotional service. So the mood of the devotee is that they do not practice bhakti to avoid sinful reactions. They only practice bhakti to please the Lord. Right. So Prabhupada translates Tat Purusha Nishevaya as engaging in the service of the devotees. Vishwanath Chakravarti translates it as engaging in the service of the Lord. So Prabhupada, in order to expand on this point, he gives two references. He gives from the instructions by Rishabdev that one can attain the path of liberation only by rendering service to the highly advanced spiritual personalities. And then Prabhupada quotes from Bhagavad Gita 9:13, Mahatma Nam Stumam Partha. A Mahatma is one who engages 24 hours daily in the loving service of the Lord. So what is the result of this seva? Freedom from sinful activities, revival of one's original Krishna consciousness, and love of Godhead. That's the result of Mahatma Seva. And then Prabhupada in the purport also writes that a devotee's absorption in bhakti is so complete that he does not care about his own material situation in heaven or hell. He quotes 6:17-28, and he quotes Lord Brahma as saying that the devotee does not care about his own happiness. So I'll read the purport of Prabhupada, part of the purport, because very inspiring for aspiring devotees. And people like us who are practicing. Prabhupada writes a very inspiring purport. So he says that the word Krishna Arpita Prana refers to a devotee who dedicates his life to serving Krishna, not to being saved from the path to hellish life. A devotee is Narayana Parayana or Vasudeva Parayana. which means that the path of Vasudeva or the devotional path is his life and soul. Narayana paraha sarva na kutashana bibhyati. 670:28. Such a devotee is not afraid of going anywhere. There is a path toward liberation in the higher planetary systems and a path towards the hellish planet. But a Narayana para devotee is unafraid wherever he is sent. He simply wants to remember Krishna wherever he may be. Such a devotee is unconcerned with heaven and hell. He is simply attached to rendering service to Krishna. When a devotee is put into hellish condition, he accepts them as mercy of Krishna. Tattenu kampam sumikshama. 10:14:8. He does not protest, saying, "Oh, I'm such a great devotee of Krishna. Why have I been put into this misery?" Instead, he thinks, "This is Krishna's mercy." Such is the attitude. Such an attitude is possible for a devotee who engages in the service of Krishna's representative. This is the secret of success. Okay, we'll do one more verse, and after that, we'll end. And if there's any discussion, we may have a few minutes for that. Verse 17. Sadrichino hayam loke pantha kuto bhayah sushilah sadhavo yatra narayana parayana. The path followed by pure devotees who are well behaved and fully endowed with the best qualification is certainly the most auspicious path in this material world. It is free from fear and it is authorized by the Shastras. So, this verse is a glorification of Bhakti and Bhaktas, the path of devotion and those who follow that path. So, Sukdev Goswami is saying this to prevent people from saying that one who cannot practice karma and jnana can practice bhakti. Right? So he says that sadrichana means most certainly this is leading to the correct goal. This is the best process in all respects. There is no fear of any obstacles. Why? Because on this path, the other practitioners are friendly and Krishna is helping. When one is following the path of karma and jnana, then there are many impediments. In the path of karma, most of the impediments come from those that are being worshipped. So actually the devas put most of the obstacles when one is following karma kant. They examine very closely to see if there is any truti, if there is any mistake, and then they give the opposite results. Or sometimes they will actively create obstacles. In the path of jnana, the obstacles come from the mind in addition to the devas. But when one is practicing bhakti, then not only are the other practitioners friendly, so you will never find one devotee complaining that, oh, this devotee is progressing much faster than I, let me put obstacles for him. When one, we have personal experience, right? We see that sometimes there are devotees who have taken to Krishna consciousness much later than us. But because they are more sincere or they're starting from a higher platform, they make progress. And I remember when I had gone to Gita Nagari one year, there was this devotee who came and he was wearing t-shirts and shorts and friendly, but basically he was having a good time. He had come mostly out of curiosity, and we were just laughing, and I could see that he was enjoying himself, looking at all these people in dhotis and tilaks. Then the next year he came, he was wearing a dhoti and tilak. Next year he was initiated. Few years down the road, he had given up his job. He has moved into the temple. Few years after that, he's the temple president. Few years after that, he's the I think whatever they call assistant GBC or something like that, right? And this was a person who joined maybe 10 years after I joined. But whenever I meet him, it's a very happy because he's inspiring me. And of course, out of humility, he says that he drew some inspiration from me. So the nature of bhakti is such that one is everybody is rooting for everybody else. And most importantly, even the devas and Krishna, they're all rooting for us. And so that's what makes it easy. So Sukdev Goswami, he talks about the characteristics of the devotees here. He says they are Sushila. So Sushila means they are well behaved, and Sadhava means they are saintly people, and which is why they are Akuta Bhaya. Akuta Bhaya is that they are without fear. They do not have any fear of retribution. And if I chant this mantra incorrectly, then a demon will come after me. So they say that they have this Brahma Rakshasas that are constantly examining whenever any yajna is performed. And if there is any mantra that is chanted incorrectly, then the Brahma Rakshasas, they come and destroy the yajnas and they create a lot of trouble for the performer of the yajnas. But not in bhakti. You're chanting, if you fall asleep, that's okay. Next time, try better. It's not that suddenly somebody comes and starts beating you up. So the focus is that because these people are Narayana Parayana, because they have taken to the path of Lord Narayan, devotional service is their life and soul. Now, do the followers of the path of bhakti lose the benefit of karma and jnana? And the answer is no. So Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12 says that one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities of the demigods. So in the translation, if you see the translation, Prabhupada says that the process of bhakti is free from fear and it is authorized by the Shastras. So this is again Prabhupada expanding. So there's no, in the Sanskrit, it's not there, but Prabhupada in the purport, he explains why important to say that the authorized by the scriptures or authorized by the conduct of great personalities is important. Prabhupada writes that Mayavadis generally allege that bhakti path is for women and illiterates. This is a groundless accusation. The bhakti path is followed by the most learned scholars, such as the Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Ramanujacharya. These are the factual followers of the bhakti path. Regardless of whether or not one is educated or aristocratic, one must follow their footsteps. Mahajana yena katha supanta. One must follow the paths of the Mahajans. Later on, he said that the less intelligent, however, misunderstand the bhakti path and therefore allege that it is for one who cannot execute the ritualistic ceremonies or speculate. And so Prabhupada writes this part, it is authorized by the scriptures to emphasize that bhakti is not the path to be followed by weak-minded people or people who do not have the intelligence to study the scriptures or who do not have the fortitude to perform yagyas or penances. But the scriptures authorize the process. And how do we understand the scriptures authorize the process? Mahajanayana Gatha Supanta. Because great personalities live the scriptures. Like the six Goswamis, Mahaprabhu and Ramanujacharya, they live the scriptures. So we don't even have to go and search the length and the breadth of scriptures to understand the potency of bhakti. We can simply study their lives. And that is a reflection of the scriptures. Okay, so let me stop over here and can see if there's any questions or discussion. Okay.
Just a comment, Prabhu. He was talking about the people had joined maybe, lately they have advanced much more. Maybe also from the previous birth, they were already at certain stage, and then they have a small portion to complete. That's why also maybe.
Yeah, I think at one point I had a lecture where it was mentioned that the devotees have three kinds of seniorities. One is seniority by age, one is seniority by initiation, and the third is seniority by realization. So generally, all these, so generally, a younger devotee will respect a senior devotee, one who is older in age. Similarly, one who has been initiated earlier on, they get respect more. And the third is by realization, which is, as you're mentioning, that they may have already performed several lifetimes of devotional service, or their absorption into the devotional service is much more intense than others. So the realization also uh, becomes much more steeper there. So generally, as devotees, we try to respect everybody. We don't give so much. We didn't give so much attention to seniority or not. I think in the nectar instruction, like it is said that while one might make some discrimination amongst devotees who are at a higher, lower, or the same platform, but that discrimination is really meant to nourish bhakti. Like when you see somebody not as advanced, then you try to give them mercy. When you see somebody more advanced, you give them service. And when you see somebody at the same, you make friendship with them. So these are the ways by which you can enhance your own bhakti. Not so much to say I'm more advanced, so you should give me obeisances when I come into the room, or I'll only associate with more advanced devotees because that's my mood. Not so much from that perspective. So yeah, good point, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll stop over here. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.